How are we doing, folks? Welcome back to the Nightmare Cabin. And I have got an extremely special guest, a long overdue guest today. This is Jackie Smit from Into the Necrosphere. How you doing, Jack?
All right, and yourself, brother. As you say, long overdue. I'm very, very happy to be here. Glad to see, you have been growing and going from strength to strength over the course of the last probably years now. We've been talking since like mid-COVID. So
Is it?
yeah,
Yeah. The YouTube channel started well, maybe just before, but before that I was doing the podcast, Metal Show with Gully and Joe.
yeah.
It was the Rock Show before that. Plus, I was writing for various magazines and whatnot. And
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, getting there bit by bit. The as we were just saying beforehand, it's balancing work and life and everything else, and getting YouTube, videos done. Amount of times I've sat on a review where it's just like I've just not got time to do it, and then a bit like this one really. I've been waiting to do this retrospective for a while, and I've been meaning to get you on the channel for a while, and then all of a sudden I had a light bulb moment. Yeah, this is going to be perfect. So
Yeah.
Jackie's joining me today. This is going to be part one of a 3, maybe 4-part series, but we're going through the back catalogue of, my opinion, one of the most important bands to come from these isles. We'll get into that soon, but yeah, the almighty Napalm Death. And where do you start with this band? Really, I was talking to a mate. Really, I put, in terms of the importance that they have on metal as a whole. Like, say, if you go, there's Napalm Death, bang, and then just the ripples. I'll put them, as far as this country goes, up there with Maiden and Priest in terms of.
I would agree, and I would
Yeah.
say in terms of extreme music. So, if you had Morbid Angel, if you had Death, Morbid Angel, Deicide, Obituary in the States, and in Europe you had Entombed. You would Dismember. You would certainly have Napalm Death align with all of those, and I would make the argument I think Napalm Death are more important than any of those bands.
Well, Napalm Death
Maybe with the
just sit in the
exception of
middle as
Death,
well. Yeah,
but
probably Death, but it's, well, you would say Scream Bloody Gore is the first proper, fully fledged death metal album. I know people say about Seven Churches, but I think Scream Bloody Gore is like, right, we know where we are now. This is it. You could, you can still sort of debate a little bit about Seven Churches, but Napalm Death as well, with the earache connection, with what they had going on with America as well. And they kind of had one foot in America because of the different members. So when they went out and recorded Harmony Corruption, but then when you had Mitch Harris, Jesse Pinto, and Danny Herrera, I think I pronounced that right.
Yeah,
they were Americans as well. But obviously Jesse was in Terrorizer, and that was really important with the grind. And they had the Morbid Angel connection, and obviously Bill Steer in Carcass, and leaving and going on to form Cathedral. Just all the bands that just, obviously Justin.
well, I was just about to say, yeah, Justin from Godflesh in there as well.
Gone on to Godflesh. Then get the original drummer's name. Bloody hell.
Mick Harris.
Mick Harris.
Yeah,
because Mick Harris and there's Mitch.
yeah, that's. I was about to say that's always very confusing.
But he went on to do. Was it Scum or was it Nick that did Scum? Scum was like an industrial project, wasn't it? But I'm sure Nick from the first album went and did an industrial project as well.
So yeah, Mick went on to do a lot of different stuff. So he went on to do Extreme Noise Terror. He had, he had a band called Defecation. He had a band called Anorexia. In terms of active bands, he's in a band called Scorn. I think he originally left Napalm Death, I believe, to go and do Scorn.
Scorn, that's it. I think Nick did Scum, and he's done Scorn. Yeah, and I think and they're more. When I say industrial, I don't mean like in a Nine Inch Nails kind of way. I mean in the old school, like Throbbing Gristle.
Yeah.
So yeah, just all these subgenres. That Napalm Death are just in the middle of all of it. With it be it everything from hardcore punk to death metal and grindcore and all in between. And yeah, I think their importance is actually quite understated. I don't think they get half the credit that they are due.
No, they don't. And I especially when it comes to Shane Embry, I've said this on my podcast an awful lot of times. I felt for years and years and years like Shane is one of those guys that the day that he hangs up his Spurs, I think people are suddenly going to realize, oh my God, like what
how
this
much.
guy did for music and what he was contributing to extreme music, we just didn't keep tally of. You know, he really is, in terms of songwriting, for me, you know, songwriting capability, which is ultimately the most important thing. You can shred as well as you want. You can be an absolute virtuoso on your instrument, but if you can't write a song worth shit, it doesn't really matter. I would argue Kirk Hammett is an incredible guitarist. He's in terms of pure musicianship, he's a much better player than, you know, Shane would ever be. But Shane, in terms of songwriting, fucking is streets ahead. And that's by virtue of the fact that not only has he been responsible for writing some incredibly influential records in the earlier days of Napalm Death, but he still to this day produces music that is relevant, like, you know, not just relevant, but, you know, truly impactful. Nobody can point to a Napalm Death record and go, "Ah, they're just going through the motions." You know, and as much as there are some folks that I know like the last Metallica record, and I know maybe it's not a fair comparison comparing Metallica to Napalm Death, but like the comparison is based on tenure. You know, these are bands that have been around for a long time.
Yeah.
I would argue I can't think of a single band off the top of my head that have been around for as long as Napalm Death have been around and are still making music of the quality that they're doing. And then you take into account that not only is Shane doing that, he's got a bunch of other bands, and they're also putting out fucking great music. I mean, he's you know, project that he did with Russ, Chronos, fantastic.
Yep.
The lockup records that he's done, fucking brilliant. I loved the last Venomous concept record, even though it's a bit of a departure from the stuff they did previously. I still love it. I think it's excellent. Yeah, he just doesn't really seem to do much of a misstep. I mean, the Brujeria records, great.
Yeah, that as well. He's run record labels here and there. I don't know if he still is, but yeah,
he's just he operates on a different level to most, in my opinion, when it comes to quality, when it comes to I marvel at it, really, because I think to myself, where the fuck is this creativity coming from at your age? You just keep churning out like riff after riff after great song after great song. And what I love is he's never remained static. And it was interesting, you know, going back, especially into these earlier records. You know, obviously he only really is an influence from Harmony Corruption, and it's more specifically Utopia Banished. But you can start to hear the formations of it early on, like especially on Utopia Banished. You can start to hear him pulling from all sorts of different genres, different scenes, different backgrounds that no one at the time was doing, because I think a lot of folks that weren't around at the time don't realize how conservative, musically speaking, a lot of the extreme metal music scene was. Like, it was, you know, play fast, play brutal, play aggressive, no industrial stuff, none of this weird like discordant melody that, you know, things that are commonplace today was definitely not commonplace then. And he was the tip of the spear, I think, as far as that's concerned. Sorry, I didn't mean to go on one of my many monologues about how much I love Shane Embury.
And not only that as well, it's, I think, from maybe a casual listener or someone who isn't quite familiar with the band, you would think the sort of conception would be for a lot of people that they just put out fast brutal, and it's the same album over and again. And that's another thing I'm going to completely dispel in this series is this band evolved a lot. And in these first 4 albums alone, the evolution the band went through and would then continue to go through. And like you said, this late into their career, they're still setting standards, not following them at all. You know, they're writing the rules as they're going along, rather than you know, curtailing to whatever's going on at the time. I think people still look to Napalm Death to know where to go next, rather than But
well, not even just that, they still play, you know, a really good live show as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've seen Napalm Death more times than any other band, 10 plus times. I've missed them the last couple of times, but there was a time I watched them every single time they played. And I think about 10 plus times.
I saw them play the very first time at the Astoria in 2000, and I think it was 2002 or 2003. And I'd seen a lot of bands up to that point because
I saw them at the LA2 around that time.
Well, that's the. Did I say the Mean Fiddler? It was the Mean Fiddler.
Yeah. Oh, this is another reason why I've wanted you on, because I've been listening to Into the Necrosphere all this time, and you and me have been at the same gigs constantly.
I was about to say we've always been in the same room.
Which is why I was going to bring it up. We even know some of the same people as well.
Yeah. Well, I remember that Mean Fiddler show, and I'd seen a lot of bands up to that point, and I was sitting watching this and thinking to myself, like, standing watching it, it's like, I have never heard something this fucking heavy coming off a
Yeah,
stage
I was
before
on the barrier
in
at
my
that show.
entire life.
And funnily enough, this is a good little segue because they opened with Instinct of Survival that
Yeah.
night. Yeah, The Great Deceiver was the support band as well, wasn't it?
Yes. Yes. And I remember that as well, because that's the first time I saw The Great Deceiver, and I was fucking blown away.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Yeah, awesome band. Yeah, I've got some odds and sods to show off here, but I think we'll stick to the albums as the main bulk, and we'll fill all the gaps in afterwards. So, yeah, I suppose we'll get into the albums. Well, first time I saw, just quick segue. First time I saw Napalm Death was on Tattoo the Planet at Wembley Arena, and I was right at the front of that. And it was the first time I ever saw a band where I could literally feel heat. That was when Barney still had long hair at that point as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, they just did a quick half-hour set, and I knew of them. I knew of Napalm Death, but that was my right. Let's check this band out, and converted there and then, and yeah, never looked back. But
it's an interesting thing with Barney. I've met him a couple of times, and he's a lovely guy. I've interviewed him for Chronicles of Chaos. Thought he was a very cool dude. But I remember seeing him on interviews when I didn't really know the band. And this is when I was 13, 14 years old. I remember I just gotten Fear, Emptiness, Despair when I was 14, because I think I came out in 1994. And I saw this interview with him, and it is, I mean, no disrespect to the man, but it's like he struck me as just a bit of a junkie. I was like this dude sounds like he's on crack when he speaks. And then he had been interviewed right when he came off stage, and then when you see them play live, you go, well, he's not on crack, he's fucking exhausted. Have you seen how much the guy moves around when he's playing?
he's just mad, isn't he?
Yeah.
He just runs up and down the spot.
Yeah. No, he's just a nutcase. And I mean, his vocal style, you can imagine the way that he expels oxygen when he's, when he's doing those vocals. I mean, that in itself must be fucking exhausting.
One thing as well, I've always, just always strikes me with Barney as well, especially on the later albums, is that especially now death metal is getting more technical. Like you can go on YouTube now and learn how to death metal growl, and
Yeah.
and there's there's technique in it now. It's like holding a thing and going really deep, and it's all a big. Barney just still sounds like he is just full of rage. Like there is technique, obviously, but do you know what I'm getting at? He is just going for it, and there is
it's not studied technique. I think is the difference, and because it's not studied technique, it's more his own voice that comes out. I mean, there's a lot of unique voices in 2023, and I'm by no means one of those people that says, all the old death metal's the best, everything new sucks. Like, not at all. Actually, I personally think we're in a golden age right now of phenomenal black metal and phenomenal death metal. Yeah. But I definitely see your point. There's, because of all these learning aids and these tools that are around now, there is a degree of I won't say monotony, but it's become to some degree a little homogenous, where you think about, let's exclude Barney from the equation. You think about Glenn Benton on the first Deicide record. I mean, that was on a different level. Like, I still listen to that and get goosebumps, because it's like, I've never heard somebody this fucking angry and this just hateful in every word he's spitting out. And you just, that's unfortunately something you don't really hear anymore.
Yeah, there's the saying from that road trip, isn't it? You're all brains, not enough cock and balls. And there's rather than getting the perfect take, just get the perfect performance. Just
100%.
Go for it,
Well, capture the performance in the right setting and the right circumstances, which is, that's why I love a band like Werewolf so much, because they kind of stick to that ethos of, the whole writing process, the recording process, everything has to be spontaneous. We don't dwell on these songs for ages and ages and ages. It's not about polishing it. It's about capturing a spontaneous.
You're talking about the Berserker guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, great albums, great band.
Yeah.
Um,
They've kind of become like the official house band of Into the Necrosphere. But yeah, but fucking
I
great band.
think I might have lost touch an album or two ago, but yeah, I'll have to catch up with them. But yeah, the
They've got a new one coming
first
out in
two
August, mate.
albums. I know they're not messing about, are they? I mean, even when the first
No.
one was done, it was like, oh yeah, second one's already recorded, just got to add some bass to it.
Oh,
It's like,
they've got 5 or 6 done. And Matt did say I was very happy about this. They sampling me for one of the upcoming records.
oh, nice, nice.
I was laying into a Cataclysm song on my news rant because I have like on my podcast for anyone who's not watched it yet. I have like an interview segment, and then I've got a news rant where I'll basically just like read the news and I'll listen to singles and give you what I think about it. And if there's one band that I think the exact opposite to every single thing that I've said nice about Napalm Death is Cataclysm. That's a band to me is all show, no go. Their music sounds really heavy, but it fucking stinks. And I was listening to the new single, and I said, "Look, I'm sorry. I know there's people that are gonna like this, but to me, it fucking sucks."
Yeah, I remember doing a review for one of their gigs, and I remember them being quite good live, but I wasn't that familiar with them. But yeah, you get the package, don't you? You go, yeah, this is going to be a bollocks. Going to check these out, and then you listen to it, and you're just like,
It's just not. There's
yeah,
nothing menacing about it. It lacks menace. That's the best way to describe it. I remember when they first came out, they brought out a record called, I think it was an EP called Sorcery, and then they put out an album called Temple of Knowledge.
yeah.
That
The
was
early
fucking
stuff is
excellent.
completely different band.
Yeah, Temple of
Yeah,
Knowledge is genius. And then
mm.
after that, it just starts to get increasingly watered down and watered down. I mean, I would find more edge on a Tool record than I would find on a Cataclysm album, and I'm not even joking. It just doesn't sound like you can sound as heavy as you want without sounding in any way convincing. That's their problem.
Mm.
And I'll
Yeah.
segue back into Napalm Death now because if ever there's a band that sounds convincing, it's Napalm Death. And they have never not sounded convincing, even when they've been relatively mellow by their standards.
Yeah. I remember buying Scum. I jumped on. I first came aware of Napalm Death around the Leaders Not Followers EP, and then jumped on board with the Enemies of the Music Business album.
Mm.
I'm not one of these metalers that likes to pretend that new metal didn't happen. Right, that's how I got into metal. Kill me, but that was my segue in Slipknot and Machine Head, the Burning Red Machine Head. That was my way in, and I learned from there. And so when I heard Napalm Death, that just blew me away. It was just like, well, this is as heavy as it gets. And so I bought Enemies of the Music Business, and then went, right, I'm going to go back to the beginning now and get Scum. In fact, I think the first time I actually heard of Napalm Death, they were on TFI Friday. Did you ever see?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I know about that.
And so I remember getting this. This isn't actually the copy I bought. I rebought this one because this is like a new singing or dancing edition. And I remember just being really confused when I opened up the booklet because no one in the band was in the band today. And yeah, that's one thing, just crazy thing about this album is that the first half of the album and the second half of the album are completely different lineup apart from the drummer.
Yeah.
So the first 12 albums, you've got Justin Broderick on guitar, Nick. Is it? I want to say Gaff something. Where is it? Nick Bullen, sorry, and on bass and vocals, and you've got Mick Harris on drums on the first half, and it's just this awesome sonic assault but it's just raw. It just sounds like a couple of microphones in a rehearsal studio and they're just going for it. And I remember as well, Prowler in the Yard by Pig Destroyer was out at that time as well. And I remember hearing an interview with him, or reading an interview with him, and they were saying like, why they didn't have a bass player. And he says, well, if you listen to those early Napalm Death recordings, the bass sounds quite muffled, like playing at that speed. It didn't causes problems. And I kind of got that a little bit on this one, especially on is it the intro to Scum, that and but yeah, I loved it because it was just like listening to a scratchy little demo. It was great. And then second half of the album, you've got Lee Doran on vocals, Bill Steer on guitar. Who did bass on the second half?
My understanding is
Jim,
it's Shane that played bass on the second half,
Jim Whiteley.
but I might be wrong.
I don't. The thing I read. Did you ever read Choosing Death?
I did years ago, and I
Yeah, I
can't
think
really
he was
remember
asked
much
to
of it.
join around this time, and he actually, yeah, he turned it down. But it was like he turned it down because he bottled it. He didn't think he was ready. He'd thought, no, I won't
Well, he
last
was
one.
very young because
Yeah,
when I think when From Enslavement to Obliteration came out, which was the next year, he was 20 years old.
yeah,
So he was a very, he already had the hair, the very
yeah.
infamous Embry hair. But yeah, he was very young. I've got a complicated relationship with Scum because I love what it did for the scene, and I love the impact that it made. I love the fact that it was such a disruptive record. It was an album that no one had heard anything quite as nasty and aggressive and fast at that time, including Death's Scream Bloody Gore. I mean, Scream Bloody Gore is an aggressive and brutal album, but it's still a very song orientated record. I mean, this is just fucking racket and insanity.
Oh yeah, you listen
Um,
to Scream Bloody Gore now. It sounds like well, compared to what's out today, it might as well be an Iron Maiden album.
yeah, I mean,
You know?
it's still a song orientated
Yeah.
record. It's not, and it's an extreme record for its time, definitely very extreme. But this was something completely different. I mean, this really was something that was it was an interruption in the pattern.
Mm.
Now, I say that I've got a complicated relationship with it because I don't really enjoy listening to it anymore. I don't get a huge amount out of it when I listen to it. I think that they went on to do so many other things that were
Mm-hmm.
superior. And actually, for me, that style that they were starting to, that was in its kind of formative stages on Scum. I feel like they did the perfect record in that style with From Enslavement to Obliteration.
Yeah, I
Like From
think.
Enslavement to Obliteration was kind of like, if I go back and listen to that, I don't think there's a single grindcore band, including Pig Destroyer, including Brutal Truth, including fucking anyone who's anyone that did not borrow liberally from that record and isn't almost entirely influenced by that album.
Yeah, yeah, I think they definitely found their feet more as a lineup than. I mean, I focus more on the first half of Scum. I must be said because and you've got that perfect little bit in the middle because you've got You Suffer. So you
Yeah,
just got that in the middle, and then that's how that's the second half. And I
yeah,
do think if they'd cut it off and just left the first album as that first half, it would probably be a bit better because the second half just kind of does go in one ear and out the other. It's much
yeah,
more enjoyable if you just listen to it in one sitting. But From Enslavement to Obliteration has all the chaos and just that sonic, assault. But this one has actual songs.
yeah.
Lucid Fairy Tale, for example, was quite a regular set opener for the band.
Mm.
What's the other one? And Unchallenged Hate. That
Well, yeah,
dun,
Unchallenged Hate
dun,
is
dun,
is is on
dun,
is
bum,
you know that
bum.
you
Yeah,
hear that a lot, but for me, everything in those first six songs is just perfect grindcore.
yeah.
I love how the record starts. Evolved as One is again completely something different for, I think, what anybody was expecting from them. I'm sure they did it on purpose. They were like, we're not going to start the album with this blasting insane track. We're going to really kind of build it up.
That was the start of something as well. Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt you, but right. No, so what you're going to say, but just keep a marker on Evolved as One, and we're going to come back to that later on. But yeah, go on.
Well, the one thing I was going to say, I know that Bill Steer was responsible alongside Mick Harris for writing a big chunk of this record, and you can definitely hear in later years how those two influenced Shane's writing, because an awful lot of like the way that it builds up to a breakdown, or some of the groove and stuff that they threw in there, a lot of that, Shane has kind of kept alive, not just in Napalm Death, but you hear it on Lockup, you hear it on even on Brujeria. So it's a record where I don't actually think you can understate its influence. You definitely can't understate its brilliance either. I mean, it really is, to me, it's a perfect grindcore record. I don't think there's anything that comes close in terms of the grindcore scene.
Yeah,
And there's a lot of albums that I like. I mean, again, there's several Pig Destroy albums I love. There's, several Brutal Truth records I love. I love Terrorizers, World Downfall, but this to me is just, it is elite of the elite.
I think as well, when you get later bands where things are a bit more a bit more improved production wise and kit wise and stuff like that. I mean, the amps and the pedals they would have had back then would be nothing compared to what you get today. I'm trying to think of a band like maybe Rotten Sound or Gadget, where they've taken grindcore but really took like the technical side of it.
Well, you think of it like another band that was very, it's a very seminal. Certainly, I was literally just about to say, Narzum is like, pretty much every single Narzum record is what's it, From Enslavement to Obliteration.
Yeah, but this band, Mick is drumming a million miles an hour. There's no triggers. There's no, sequencing. There's no, this wasn't recorded on a computer screen with a load of lines everywhere. And, you have this perfect take. This was just like, go on and play, and it sounds horrible, but it sounds brilliant,
Well, they recorded this over a very short period of time as well. I think it was something like 4 days or something that they recorded, and it was like a lot of the playing, as you say, was completely live. So they wanted to capture something that they wanted to kind of capture that live intensity, but they really were pushing themselves incredibly hard to be able to do that. Because I mean, the album has got 28 songs.
Yeah, I think you got 22 songs, but everyone's CD is 27 because you used to get an EP, like a little 7-inch, free with the album. It was like a bonus. I suppose the first, 500 copies or whatever came with an EP. But the songs on that EP are now on the CD. So, but yeah, the last 5 tracks or so are actually officially bonus tracks. You didn't need to know that, did you? Sorry,
but no, just no. Well, I think anyone watching would want to know it. But yeah, masterpiece.
Yeah,
29 minutes of just absolute masterpiece in my view.
Yeah, absolute mayhem. So they go on tour. Well, they do a lot of they did, for a band of their type, they had pretty good promotion because they were doing the BBC sessions. They were on a lot of television as well. And yeah, the whole grind thing was getting quite a bit of traction. And but apparently they went out to Japan and did a few gigs and fell out. That's why Lee and Bill left. I think Bill's heart was really in Carcass anyway. I did remember reading something along the lines of it wasn't Carcass. He was like an offshoot of Napalm Death. Bill was always Carcass. He just joined us because we bullied him, basically. We was like, we need a guitar player. Join us.
Yeah, I'd also heard it was personal and creative tensions. Obviously, Lee had his own views on what he was going to do with Cathedral, and he shoved off. And Bill,
I think Cathedral was a bit by accident, really, because he was known for Napalm Death, and when he formed Cathedral, it was like, well, I've done that, but I quite like Sabbath and prog and all the rest of it. And then I think there was a bit of a surprise how different Cathedral were
to Napalm Death.
Yeah, because I think people were expecting another like an Napalm Death offshoot.
He's another guy that I've hung out with one evening, and he's an interesting cat. Like I've never been the biggest Cathedral fan. I actually felt pretty bad being in the being out on the booze with him, because he was talking to me about Cathedral like I should know what he's talking about, and it's like, you kind of sit there with a smile and pretend that you do, but no, I don't really know about it. I've never listened to a Cathedral album. I've never had the desire to listen through end to end to one. And as far as Carcass is concerned, I like Necroticism. There's not a single other Carcass record I enjoy whatsoever. I think everything else is boring as fuck.
Not even artwork, no? I saw them the other night. They were awesome.
Hated
them in Southend.
So I when I was getting into death metal, the first bands that I discovered there was like a groundswell of stuff. The first thing I got was Obituaries, The Incomplete. And then my appetite is whetted. So I'm like, okay, I need to check out all these bands that I see in Metal Maniacs. So Carcass, I check out. This was right around the time when Heartwork was coming out. It's right around the time when Fear Emptiness Despair was coming out. My first introduction to Napalm Death actually wasn't Fear and Sinister Despair. It was Mass Appeal Madness. I saw the music video for that, and I was just blown away. I was like,
You're
"This
a bit
is
older than me, then, ain't you?
yeah." I'm 40. I'm 43.
Oh, right. I'm
So yeah.
39. Mm.
So I was getting into this in my reasonably early-ish mid to early early to mid teens. But yeah,
Yeah.
so I heard Mass Appeal Madness and I was like, this is everything that I like. But I got so Deicide, Obituary, Morbid Angel, Cannibal Corpse, Napalm Death, Bolt Thrower. Someone gave me Heartwork, and you can imagine a young fucking testosterone adult boy with all the bands I just mentioned to you now. I
Yeah,
I
yeah.
heard Heartwork, and I was like, this isn't badass. This doesn't make me want
Yeah.
to fuck somebody up. It's like so that got discarded, and I've never recovered. I remember hearing Swan Song as well, and that was even worse. And again, I
If you don't like
concede
artwork, you're not gonna like Swan Song. No.
no, and I do concede I'm in the minority there. I know vast majority of people I know love Carcass, and there are elements of Carcass I love. Like I really love the vocals, but yeah, I need like the things that really excited me was hearing something like Mass Appeal Madness, and it was like,
Mm.
Jesus, this is so fucking aggressive and just so like relentlessly violent. That was exactly what I loved, what I responded to.
Yeah. So yeah, so Lee goes and Bill goes, and then yeah, they get Barney Greenway in on vocals, who at that point had one album under his belt with Benediction, and then Mitch Harris from America, and he was in Righteous Pigs, and Jesse Pininto, who was in Terrorizer.
Jesse Pintado, you mean?
Pintado, sorry, and yeah, the thanks for correcting me because I balls up people's names all the time.
No. So do I. Don't worry.
Briefly met Jesse at that very gig that we mentioned earlier as well. That was a cherished memory now
About
because
to
he's no
say,
longer with us.
rest in peace.
Yeah, but
Fucking great guitarist and such a presence on stage. Like he was a
yeah.
very understated presence, but he just had this real vibe on stage. I just loved.
So yeah, with the tape trading scene that was going on at the time, so basically two American guitarists joined the band,
Mm.
and then they go out to Florida and record with Scott Burns, and produce Harmony Corruption. Now, I think my opinion of this album is going to be a bit similar to yours with Scum, because as much as I value this album and its place in the pantheon, it's not an album I go to that often. And it's not so I don't enjoy it. There's some great re-listening to these albums for this show as well. I like this album a lot more now than I used to. It used to just be a sort of I've got it to complete the collection sort of thing.
Mm.
But I think, I mean, the riffs on Vision Conquest and Inner Incineration, I think there's a little bit of melody in there that I never noticed before. But this basically just sort of fits in what was going on at the time. I mean, I'm not really getting from this album that you wouldn't have got from Benediction or Bolt Thrower or.
Well, so it's interesting you mentioned that. Like I always saw this record, and increasingly so as I grew older and I had a wider frame of reference. I saw it as as them making the record Benediction wish they could have made. It's like I almost feel like especially with the Scott Burns production, the sound, the vibe of the record. They basically went and did a US death metal style record better than the vast majority of people who were doing it at the time. I mean, it's
well, that is another thing that needs noted as well. We've gone from complete 30 seconds blast things to 10 songs that are actually full on proper
death metal.
Yeah.
That's true. I mean, it's a traditional death metal record.
Sense, yeah.
Doesn't necessarily have all the solos and the shredding that you're going to get from some other bands, but it's got a what's them? Is that
camera focus?
I was about to say your
yeah. It's because I keep holding stuff up.
It looks like one of those what's that? It looks like one of those soap operas where they Vaseline up the lenses. You're having a flashback.
Yeah.
My view on that album has improved over the years. When I first heard it, as I said, remember I'd gotten Mass Appeal Madness, then Fear, Emptiness, Despair, then Utopia Banished, and that's kind of how the journey went. So for me to go to that record, I was like, Jesus, this is very different to what my favorite record is, Fear and Sinister Despair. But over the years, I've really come to appreciate it, and knowing the time that it came out, comparing it to other records that were coming out at the time, also many of them seminal. But I actually think it holds up really, really well. I don't think
Yeah,
it's. I think if you see it for what it is, and you don't say, well, it compares poorly to Enemies of the Music Business, or it compares poorly to Order of the Leech, or what, I mean, you can't do that. But if you
yeah,
see it for the time that they made it in, and for the role that it played in helping form the band later on, I think it's a great record. And again, you start to hear some of those on the tracks that Shane wrote. I think he only wrote 3 tracks on the record, but you already start to hear some of those influences coming through. More pronounced on Utopia Banished, but you start to hear it early on those songs, especially the grooves. Like there's so many fucking cool grooves on this record.
yeah, yeah. It's
That I totally forgot
perfectly.
about.
Yeah, that was one thing that stood out to me as well. There was a lot more groove. I'll say subtle melodies in the shredding, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I remember being nicely refreshed when I listened to this
Mm.
the other night. I was just like, yeah, this is really good. But yeah, what I'm getting at is I think Utopia Banished is more important in the band's evolution, but I'll get to that when we get to it. But obviously,
I would agree with you on that.
Stuff for the Children, that's Napalm Death's Run to the Hills. They play that every single show. But yeah, there's all good songs on there. Really, it's just funny because like I say, you got the 2 grindcore albums, pretty much overhaul of the lineup. Mind you, we had that anyway. So it's like, yeah, here's another new lineup and a complete shift in the sound or approach. And then then Mick leaves the band. From what I've read, pretty mutual, really. He felt that he had pretty much gone as far as he could go as a drummer. He didn't think he would get any better. I can't blame him after these 3 albums in this particular time in music. And I think he wanted to explore different sounds. I think he still wanted to be sonically heavy, but wanted to find other ways of doing it.
Yeah.
And he was quite happily with the current lineup and just gone like, you know what you're doing. You don't want to change. Keep this as it is. And I'll just pass the torch on to you and leave it in your capable hands, really, which doesn't happen often in
No.
the music world. But yeah, so then we
Well,
got...
I mean, they got Danny Herrera in, who's a fantastic drummer. And then as you say, they go and make Utopia Banished, which, was probably in terms of their 90s material, this really was the preview of what was to come. It still had some of the leftover death metal influences from Harmony Corruption, but the blueprint was kind of put in place for like, this is going to be Napalm Death in the future. And to me, this is also a record that it took a while to grow on me, but as the more I listen to it, the more I've grown to absolutely love it.
If I go through Metal Archives, is it coming up on the screen?
No, it doesn't.
Oh, good. All right. Because I never did know if this is my first time using Zoom. I've normally...
Oh, really?
Normally I've joined I've been invited onto it. So
yeah,
but this is my first time.
No, mate, no, it doesn't.
Probably set up an
so
account.
you just need to if you share a screen, then it would WhatsApp.
Right. Okay.
Then it would come up, but no, it doesn't.
Yeah. So there's the lineup on the... I think I've got a bloody glare there. Oh,
yeah.
And,
I had that poster up on my wall when I was a
here's
young
one
buck,
for you, because
as was that one.
You've been in England for quite a while now, haven't you?
Yeah.
When did you first move?
2002.
Right. Late 90s, early 2000s. Were you even a British extreme metal band if you had to have artwork by Mid,
Mm.
and if you weren't produced by either Dave Chang or Colin
Richardson? Yeah.
And I'm thinking Stamping Ground, Underall. They all had that similar... I want to say there was another artist as well, weren't there? That did like Disincarnate, Burn My Eyes, Dearly Beheaded. I think is that the same art.
I know you're talking about.
That
I think Colin Richardson did Dearly
brownie,
Beheaded.
yeah.
But Colin Richardson, though, what he brought to their sound, I fucking absolutely love. I mean, like I'm a fan of Scott Burns and Morrisound, but I think him starting to produce the band's music, it started to create that really big soundstage and that very kind of imposing battering ram feel that their music had. Again, not as good, and we'll get onto this in part two. Not as powerful as Fear, Emptiness, Despair, because when you hear that album for the first time, it's fucking crushing. But it was definitely the beginnings of it were very, very evident here, and it was a big step up sonically from Harmony Corruption.
Yeah, this is pretty much where I'm gonna conclude with this. It's while this was just pretty much a straightforward death metal album, it combined the death metal and the grind. It borrowed from both eras and blended them perfectly. So rather than 27 30-second long songs or 10 4-minute songs, here you've got 15 2-minute songs, which is all just perfectly balanced and all perfectly set out. And yeah, as much as, you know, there were other bands doing this at the time, there was obviously your sort of crust, sort of punk, like bands like Discharge or Crass, or, you know, the whole spiky anarchic, you know, you've got Extreme Noise Terror. Carcass was doing it as well. Obviously, you've got death metal in the UK. You had like your Bolt Throws and your Benedictions, but then you went to Tampa, you had that whole scene. This to me was like, this is Napalm Death doing Napalm Death.
Yeah, 1,000% agree.
Yeah, and this was the standard going forward. This is like where they had to.
And just again, phenomenal songs. I mean, I Abstain, fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
The World Keeps Turning. You know, that groove on that riff. It's such a simple riff, especially by their standards. Fantastic. And then the discordant industrial avant-garde stuff. You know, because so Shane's always been open about his influences being Discharge, Venom, Motorhead, Slayer, and then Swans, Killing Joke. You can definitely start to hear that Swans influence come in on Contemptuous, which closes off the record.
And that's something what I wanted to mention. Yeah, so if you take the final track, Contemptuous, that kind of starts with Evolved as One, picked up with Contentious. Now this again, it's very industrial sounding. You think Swans, maybe a bit of Killing Joke in there, post-punk. It's atmospheric, and it's got, you know, it's very separate from the rest of the album. But they always did that going forward. There would always be like sort of one song where they just completely, right, you've had your metal, you've had your, you know, your blast and your riffing. And
we're gonna do something a little different.
We're gonna fuck about for a song here, and they're gonna do something slow and you know, like, you know, and they'd just be experimenting with sounds. And but they've even, a few years ago, they did a set at a festival where it was just the slower, more experimental stuff. And I would have loved to have seen that. Just, we're putting everything aside for this one show. And it's all the Swans stuff, all the industrial stuff, you know. And, but that is something to keep in mind going forward, because it's kind of like a side project that isn't a side project, if you know what I mean. It's just this little parallel, I suppose it's like distinction level Napalm Death. It's like, it's normally on the end of an album, maybe as an intro, they might, but it's like, we're doing this, you can ignore it and skip it if you like, but this is something we're going to explore on the side if you want to follow us, sort of thing.
Well, and then obviously they had all of those projects on the side. So Me Took Seed was one that I know that they did. I'm trying to think now, when did they do Embedded? So they did Embedded in 1993. And I mean, that album
Napalm Death side projects as well. That's a podcast on its own,
And I mean, Mitch Harris was the main dude on Embedded, but you can hear his love of industrial and stuff like that starting to come out on Utopia Banished, and then really, really become pronounced on Fear, Emptiness, Despair. But you know, all of those things were never far away from their style. And again, what I love about what they do is they are generally, and especially as they've progressed in years, they are very creatively free in the way that they write. I don't think they've ever tried to have distinctions in, well, we have to write this type of song, or we have to do this because otherwise it's not a Napalm Death track. And then the other thing that they were doing from a, you know, very pretty much from the beginning that I think is worth talking about. From a a socio-political perspective, everyone was singing about Satan and killing at the time, and they were singing, very highly charged, politically conscious songs. My personal view is I think, especially Barney Greenway's politics are misguided, but that doesn't matter. He was still trying to very passionately make a case, and doing so, I think, with more class than the likes of
Yeah, I mean,
Rage Against the Machine and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
I'm not. I don't agree with. I'm more to the right. But what I would say with
you're not a communist.
but what I would say with Barney is that at least he's always been sincere,
Yes,
and
100%.
he's definitely argues his points a lot better than most. I will always sort of I'm going to hear him out.
Yeah. No,
And
he's always come from a very human place. Now,
yeah,
I personally happen to think many of the things that he supports historically leads to bad outcomes. And I joked about him being a communist. He's not a communist, but
yeah.
he's certainly a socialist.
But
But it's
I did see him quote once. He just sort of said like left, right, Labour, Conservative. He went, "I'd throw it all out tomorrow if I could just have everyone treated with decency and not respect and with respect and." What was
and
it?
the thing is, he again. I've spoken to him a couple of times. He's a guy you
Yeah,
can have a very
I'm
reasonable and rational
fair enough.
conversation.
I don't mind. Yeah, I'll shake your hand on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, if that's it. But
Say to him, just don't be talking to me about Bernie Sanders. I'm
yeah,
you're not going to convince me on that one, Greenway. Um,
yeah.
but no, like I said, you can have a very reasonable conversation with him.
I'm just saying, there's other people that can really piss me off instantly, and I always think, well, what do I can I not cope with someone thinking different? I go, well, that's not very because I love Napalm Death, like so, and then it suddenly hit me. I was like, no, the difference is he's at least sincere,
yes,
and he means
agree.
well. So yeah, there is that, but
And if it leads to tracks like the many we've spoken about already, or Got Time to Kill, Idiosyncratic. I'm singing about whatever you want. I don't give a shit.
yeah, exactly. And
Like,
again, I've seen him in interviews as well. He's like, look, either enjoy it or ignore it. He goes, I'm not
yeah,
trying to make you think. I just want to make you aware of something.
yeah.
If you at least like go and look into it, then I'm happy with that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I've got a few odds and sods to write. I mean, you're even getting Napalm Death toys now, and I don't know what sad git would buy that, but there you go.
I didn't even know about that.
Yeah. I managed to pick this up. I don't think this is official, but this has got on it the Hatred Surge demo and the From Enslavement to Obliteration demo. So the original lineup on the first side of Scum. This is like it's got those demos on it. Wow. Even bigger step in evolution. They're like a post-punk band. You think Killing Joke, Joy Division, even in places. But there's early versions of like Instinct of Survival, Sacrifice, Siege of Power. What else is on there? Private Death, was that on one of the first two albums? But yeah, so when you hear like Instinct of Survival, like, multinational corporation, but it's like a corporation rather than it's like a more straightforward punk song. You've got a rough mix of Scum on there, a Rehearsal from 1988, and a couple of odds and sods. That's pretty cool. I don't know if anyone's ever picked that up. Grind at the BBC. You've got
cool.
Pill Sessions from. I used to have Napalm Death, the Pill Sessions, but I can't find. I've lost it, and I've lost the DVD. There's 2 DVDs.
Well, that was a guy that was very instrumental in their, in kind of bringing them to the public consciousness was John Peel. He was massively behind the band at a time when everybody thought that the band was an oddity and a joke.
Yeah. But yeah, you got really good sessions here. You got Extreme Noise Terror, Carcass, the original lineup of Bolt Thrower. So with the original singer, not oh bloody hell, what's his? I've met Bolt Thrower singer. Fuck's sake.
Paul Willits.
Yeah, before Carl Willits was in the band. The only recording with their original singer, Bolt Thrower. Got Godflesh,
no
Unseen Terror, Heresy, Intense Degree. That's worth picking up.
Yeah.
And then they've got this as well. Death by Manipulation, and this is basically just a collection. This came out just before Utopia Banished, and it's a collection of all the EPs up to that point. So yeah, mass. What was it? You said
Alan West was the original vocalist for Bolt Thrower.
That's right.
But he was only there up and for the demos and for the Peel sessions, and then when In Battle There Is No Law came out, Cole Willits joined.
Yeah, that's right. But let me just quickly go through this compilation. You've got the Mass Appeal Madness EP, the Suffer the Children EP, Mentally Murdered EP, and the Napalm Death songs on the split they did with SOB. That's on that. That's worth picking up.
Yeah, that's very cool. That again, I remember that cover really well. There was another poster I had up against the wall.
Yeah. So I'm surprised we got that done in the time we had, because
well, dude, I thoroughly enjoyed it,
but
and we will definitely have to do part 2 very soon.
Yeah, well, part 2 we will be doing the controversial era of the band, I think. But I think
I'll raise a spoiler alert right now. I fucking love that era.
I love this era, and I think that's the controversial take on it, because a lot of people shit on these albums. So I'm looking forward to getting into it with you. Just how great these. If this was as bad as it got, trust me.
I was about to say they're like one of those bands where they to me are very much like Paradise Lost in that regard, where on their worst day they're still better than the vast majority of other bands.
Exactly.
Paradise Lost as an example, they could put out a record like Believe in Nothing, which by their standards doesn't cut the mustard, but it's still better than fucking most bands.
What's the one that people really shit on? That they Host, yeah.
Which I fucking love. When it came out, I loved it, and I discovered that band through Gothic.
It had something more to do with the image rather than the.
It had to do with a lot of things: the image, the fact that they sounded like Depeche Mode when they were a doom death band.
Yeah,
that didn't bother me. They were one of those bands where I was. When I had learned to embrace Icon, I knew that, like, okay, well, we'd need to sort of brace ourselves for the fact that there's going to be a different sound on every record. And from then on, I was down for the ride. Like, okay, what are you going to surprise me with?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of it. What's the song? Oh, like a fever. Dun, dun,
that's on Draconian Times.
That's before Icon.
No, Draconian Times came out after Icon.
Oh, right. Okay. So when was... Oh, we'll have to do a Paradise Lost at some... I'm not that big of... I know of them, but I'm not massively into them. But I know enough. I'd probably I'd get through a live set, But
oh, dude, I'm a massive Paradise Lost fan. So in amongst getting all of that stuff that I was just talking about now, I think one of the most important things in my entire life was hearing Gothic by Paradise Lost for the first time. Like, when I heard that, I was like, I've never heard something that sounds like this before, and I still feel like that when I hear that album. And I'm most excited because they're doing Icon in its entirety in December at the Shepherd's Bush. No, I think it's the Shepherd's Bush O2 now. But I'm taking my 9-year-old daughter there for the first time because it's an all-ages show as long as you're up on the balcony.
Yeah.
So yeah,
my boy taking Flames before Brixton Academy.
Oh, cool.
Down. Yeah, he's getting into his metal now, and yeah. So, Jack, mate, I could speak to you for hours. So,
well, we'll do another one again soon, brother.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So, yeah, not that you wouldn't have heard of his channel if you're watching mine, but check out Into the Necrosphere. It's a weekly show with news and rants and awesome interviews. I've discovered shitloads of music because of Jackie, and yeah, I'm glad to finally collaborate with you, and wish you all the best. And see you again in part 2. Thanks for watching.
Cheers, brother.
Give us one of them. Give us a subscribe, and I'll see you all further down the line. Thanks a lot for watching.